We want to welcome you to our public forum tonight. And before we begin, I'd like to have the Democratic Club of Windsor say a few words. Rick?
Hi, my name is Rick Massell, and all I wanted to say was we have a Windsor Democratic Club, in case you didn't know. And if you're interested, we're passing out a sign-up sheet just to get information if you want to know when and where we meet. We meet monthly. And that's all I wanted to say. We're co-sponsoring this with the Chamber, and we thank them very much for running this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Okay, good turnout. Sorry for the delay. We had a bit of a delay just getting the sound equipment here through traffic at rush hour, so you know what that's like coming back from Santa Rosa this time of day. Anyway, tonight, glad you came out. Glad that this is not yesterday with the rain we had. We had a beautiful day for this, and we certainly want to welcome you all here. Just want to mention at the beginning that the Chamber is committed to encouraging both informed and active participation in local government by the commercial sector as well as by residents of community, by working to provide public access to candidates, as you see here this evening. The Chamber doesn't support or oppose any political party or candidate. Our goal is to encourage those running for public office to engage in an open dialogue and discussion of the issues without bias or preference. Tonight, the forum includes candidates for the 4th Supervisorial District of Sonoma County, which encompasses Larkfield, Wickiup, Northwest Santa Rosa, as well as Windsor, Healdsburg, and Cloverdale, including unincorporated areas of the northern part of Sonoma County to the Mendocino County line. I'm sure all of you are familiar with the candidates, but let me just restate. There are 2 candidates running for this office, Deborah Fudge, Town Council Member in Windsor, and Mike McGuire, City Council Member in Healdsburg. Now here are the ground rules for the debate. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement and 2 minutes for a closing statement. The order was chosen by a coin toss earlier this evening, and Deborah won. Following the opening statements, candidates will be given the opportunity to ask each other 2 questions. Candidates will have 30 seconds to answer the question and 1 minute to answer the question from each other and 30 seconds for a response. Our timekeeper tonight is Liz Stevens. Raise your hand, Liz. And the way it's going to work is when you have questions, instead of opening the floor, we ask that you raise your hand and one of our runners will bring a 3x5 card where you can write your question down. It will be submitted to our panel, and our distinguished panel members include Kurt Mitchner, who you might probably know is a local dentist in town, Will Jones, architect, and Tom Lawrence, who is with the realtor firm of Frank Howard Allen, excuse me, I'm sorry. And they review the questions, make sure that they apply to both parties, so no one is going to be asking a direct question of each candidate, but the question will be rephrased only slightly to refer to both. I'll give you an example. If someone were to say, Deb, where did you go to high school? The question will be, where did both of you go to high school? Okay, so this way we keep it fair and we make sure that both sides receive the same kind of questions. So I'll ask one question to just kick this off, and I don't know if anyone has got their hands up yet because we need to distribute the cards. So if you have questions, please write the question down and submit it to, just hold your hand up, and one of our runners will go around and give you a card and then collect the card when you have completed it. Only 2 questions. You've had all your questions answered many times. Now, there we go. We have some more hands on this side. Okay, now while you're writing out your questions, we'll let the candidates make their opening statements. Deb?
Okay, thank you. I'd like to thank the Democratic Club for doing this tonight. This is the first time we've ever had a debate like this in Windsor, and there's a great turnout, so this is just boding well for the future. I believe I would make the strongest and best prepared supervisor based on some things I'd like to tell you about myself. I have 2 decades of government and private sector experience. I was a PG&E employee for 25 years. I managed multi-million-dollar budgets, and I also managed environmental affairs for the North Coast of California. also worked for Jerry Brown. I worked for the Office of Planning and Research, the governor's office, early on, and I have statewide experience as well. I worked to protect ag lands when I was in that position. And then here in Windsor, I was on the Planning Commission for 2 years, and I've been a Windsor Council member for the last 14 years. I am your fiscal conservative. I'm really proud to say that Windsor has 55% in reserves, and that's a result of our careful and strategic spending. We've done a really good job here in Windsor, and I would like to take that experience to the county level. But not only have I been working locally in Windsor these last 16 years, as you can see, building the downtown and the town green and building the center where we are now, but I've been working regionally as well, trying to get a lot more county-wide experience so that I'll be really well prepared when I take this job. Should I win? I'm making that assumption, but should I win? I am the chair of the SMART Board of Directors. For the last 3 years, I've been actively engaged in water policy at the Sonoma County Water Agency. I'm a Water Advisory Committee member. I've lobbied many times at federal and state levels in support of Sonoma County water issues. And I will use my skills and experience to grow the Sonoma County economy as I have. I'm working to provide jobs through SMART, through the Sonoma County Energy Independence Program. I've done that through Windsor and through the Railroad Square development in Santa Rosa. I have a long-term vision for the sustainable future, both economically and environmentally, for Sonoma County. I have the experience to be able to pull that off. I'd like us to end short-term, short-sighted decision-making that has cost us millions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deb. Mike?
Thank you very much. Also want to say thank you so much to the Windsor Democratic Club for all their incredible work on this evening's forum, and also the Windsor Chamber of Commerce. And thank all of you for coming out after a long day at work. I want to tell you a little bit about myself, about my family, and about how we need to be able to work together to solve the tremendous issues facing our county. I was raised by a single mom. My mom and dad divorced when I was 6 months old, and she moved back into Healdsburg. My grandma took us in, and my grandma helped raise me. My family farmed out in the East Soda Rock Lane in Alexander Valley for 47 years. At the age of 19, I was first elected to the Healdsburg School Board, and I focused on rebuilding decaying schools and ensuring that we have job and technical skills programs for those students that will not go on to a four-year degree. I've been on the Healdsburg City Council since 2004. I served as our city's youngest mayor in our history. On the council, I focus on creating jobs and partnerships with businesses, protecting our environment, ensuring that we have partnerships with our local schools, and running the greenest and largest independent utility in the county of Sonoma. And we've hit the final sprint here. We're in the last 30 days of this very important election. And you know, in this morning's Press Democrat, my opponent called me a career politician. And I got to tell you, I found that very humorous. She's been on the Windsor Town Council for the last 16 years. And for the last 5 years, she's been running for a higher office. Look, enough with the name calling. Tonight, we need to focus on the issues. We need to focus on the 22% of Sonoma County that's underemployed and unemployed and bring jobs to our county. We need to focus on those students that will not go on to a four-year degree with job and technical skills programs. We need to focus on making the environment a priority again in the county of Sonoma. And we need to ensure that we balance our budget. We are facing tremendous challenges in this county. And together, we will build a better Sonoma County. Thank you.
There you go. Thank you both. Just a point of order, I heard a cell phone out there. If you could please turn off your cell phones or put them on vibrate so that we don't disrupt the debate or the panel forum tonight. And also, just so everyone knows, this lady over here holding up the yellow cards and the red cards, when you see the yellow card candidates, that's at the 30-second warning, and the red card, you're right on the money, okay? So with that, we now have phase two, which during this time, the candidates will be able to ask each other 2 questions. And the question should be no more than about 30 seconds, followed by a 30-second response. So we'll start with Mike.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Fletch, you claim in your ballot statement and at our last debate that Windsor is a booming economic center. Now, no one is blaming you for the mortgage meltdown, but didn't you know that this was happening? Don't you know that half of all home sales in Windsor are a result of foreclosure or short sales? Sales taxes are down. Unemployment is over 10%. And at your last council meeting, when you were talking about raising Windsor's water rates, you said it's obvious that it's harder for people now. In light of that, Do you still support that statement?
I actually, after you talked about foreclosures at our last debate, I actually checked, and actually Roanoke Park is first in foreclosures, but foreclosures are not anything that any city council member has anything to do with. What I said in my ballot statement was that I created a vibrant center in Windsor. The center is the downtown, and I don't think anybody can argue that there's a vibrant center there that didn't exist there before I was on the council. And in terms of water rates, Windsor just raised our water rates 6%. We are still 33% below Healdsburg's water rates. We are running our water plant very conservatively, very wisely. We don't raise rates more than we have to, and I was stunned to see that Healdsburg has the highest water rates in the entire county, and they haven't revised them yet. They could be raised again. And they're about 33% higher than Windsor. So I'm very proud of the way we've run Windsor. We're fiscally conservative, we're in very good shape. And it's just a great community, and I'm really proud of what the whole council's done.
Thank you very much, and I agree that Windsor is a great community, but there are other economic indicators rather than just having healthy reserves, and Healdsburg has almost as healthy a reserve as Windsor. We are in the worst recession since the Great Depression, and the words that you actually use were Windsor is a booming economic center. And look, these days, Healdsburg, Windsor, Cloverdale, Santa Rosa, no one is booming. And what we need to do is face those facts and start creating jobs and start creating a balanced budget for all of our communities.
Deb, your question?
Mike, Windsor sends 2% of our transit occupancy tax to the Sonoma County Tourism Bureau, and we also send $37,000 to the Bureau so that they can help market Windsor. What we've helped to do is protect 16,000 jobs in the service industry and the tourism industry countywide through our contribution for our transit occupancy tax to the county. Why has Healdsburg refused to join the program, and what, if anything, have you done to turn this decision around, and what was your vote on that?
Really good question, and I appreciate you asking that, because it is because of the bed tax that we have in Healdsburg that we are able to fund police and fire, and that we are able to fund expansion of our park and recreation department even in these tough economic times. Healdsburg actually has a program that Windsor should look at. It's a $250,000 match with our lodging coalition. That $250,000 match, which is redevelopment agency money, brings in $1.1 million a year to city coffers. And what happens with that $1.1 million? It's reinvested. It's reinvested to community gardens. It's reinvested into police and fire. It's reinvested into after-school programs for our kids. And I am so very proud that because of this partnership, Healdsburg has one of the most efficient and largest economies in the North Bay. And it is because of the partnerships with local business, small businesses, and our lodging coalition that we're there.
Well, I'm glad to hear that Healdsburg is taking care of itself, but I don't see Healdsburg or the residents or the council members of Healdsburg working to help take care of tourism for the entire county. That's something, if we want to work collaboratively and work countywide, that's something we should all be doing. It was a sacrifice for the people who live here in Windsor and the visitors who live here to actually approve that 2% tax. It was a very controversial thing, but we were very glad to be able to support tourism countywide because we all live in this county. We all should be working for the economic development of the county together.
Okay, Deb, ready for your question.
Oh, I asked another one now? Okay. This is going really fast. Both of us are elected officials, and both of us have had time to actually create jobs. Through my work on SMART, I'm working to create 18,000 new jobs in the region when the SMART train is running. That's the number of jobs that will be created. I've also helped create jobs through the Sonoma County Energy Independence Program, through making sure that the cities were included in the formation of that district. I've also created hundreds of jobs in Windsor, and I've made sure that the jobs that will be on the Railroad Square development on the SMART property are actually Sonoma and Marin hired employees. So Mike, you have a jobs plan, but just how many jobs have you actually created? What has been your track record to date?
Thank you very much. Actually, it's the voters of Sonoma County that are creating the jobs for SMART. They're the ones that had the foresight to be able to pass SMART for Sonoma County. Secondly, I am very proud, along with the Healdsburg City Council, that we have one of the best and most thriving local economies that have created jobs through our partnerships with local business. So for example, we have put folks to work in regards to our partnership, $72,000 a year, that brings community and individuals into our downtown business district. We've created jobs by having the largest and most aggressive solar installation plan in our county. We have been able to create jobs through that bed tax that you had just talked about. We are creating jobs through partnerships with business, through partnerships with our auto dealers, through partnerships with our lodging coalition. Now look, the reason I have a jobs plan is because I'm not running for Windsor Town Council or the Hillsborough City Council. We are running for the Board of Supervisors. I encourage you to go look at our 6-point jobs plan to get Sonoma County back working again.
Response?
Yes, the SMART voters have worked to pass Measure Q and helped to create those jobs, but I would say as chair of SMART and with the number of hours I'm putting in, I would say that the entire board is really doing a great deal to make sure that that happens. I would also say collaboratively that there's been many jobs that have been created in this area that have really benefited the region, and I just think that what we should do is create a jobs plan when the Board of Supervisors is set in place, that's when we create a jobs plan, and that's what we should be working collaboratively together, not individually.
Great. Okay, ready for your next question?
Oh, this is great. Here we go. Councilmember Fudge, you voted at least twice against the widening of Highway 101 for various reasons. Now, we are both big proponents of SMART, but earlier this year you appeared before the Sonoma County Transportation Authority, which I serve on, and reiterated your opposition to the widening of 101. Since we now have 3 lanes, and those 3 lanes are completed ahead of schedule and $70 million under budget, do you regret voting against this project?
I did not get in front of the Sonoma County Transit Authority and talk and discuss my opposition to the widening of 101. The only time that I spoke against the widening of 101 when I think it was called Measure B, and when it was on the ballot without the train. We need in Sonoma County to be able to get out of our cars, to reduce greenhouse gases, and to have alternative transportation methods. Not only did I voted against it that one time and spoke against it once, that was the only time. Every time there's been alternative transit, not only have I voted for it, I have physically put my money and my time where my mouth is, and I've worked on the initiatives that would actually bring us that alternative transit, and that's why I've been working so hard on the SMART board for the last 5 years.
Good response.
Well, in the January meeting, you actually came and spoke against the Comprehensive Transportation Plan. That Comprehensive Transportation Plan actually is the document that guides the widening of 101. And it's on record and on tape. And it's the second time that you voted against the project. So I agree with you. We need to look at all forms of transportation, SMART, buses, pedestrian pathways. But we also have to continue with what over 72% of voters wanted in this county. And that's moving towards the widening of 101, which again is $70 million under budget.
Okay. I want to thank you both for sticking to the time factor. The cards haven't come up more than once with both of you you're right on time, so that's perfect. We're on schedule here. Now we're going to start asking questions that we receive from the floor, but to begin, the Chamber of Commerce has one question we'd like to ask both of you, and I'm going to start with you, Mike. Mike, what's your position on mining or skimming the Russian River for gravel?
You know, good question. This came up at the last debate, and it's the same response Deb and I both had as reported in the Press Democrat is do not support the extension of the ARM plan, the Aggregate Resource Management Plan that led those disastrous pits along the river. In addition, do not support skimming in the river. As I said, with one exception. We have a huge issue of public safety at the Geyserville Bridge. Now, I've talked with the Russian Riverkeeper organization about this issue, and they too feel that something's going to need to be done with the approach at the Geyserville Bridge. So I do not support the ARM plan extension, do not support skimming, but we do need to address the issue at Geyserville Bridge, which, by the way, had to be replaced, and a new bridge has been put in there about 2 years ago.
Okay, Deb, before you respond, is everyone hearing both candidates equally? We've got the volume turned up as loud as we can. I'm going to pass the same mic.
Oh, wow, that is loud.
Everything better?
I thought I just had a hoarse voice, and now I realize it was the microphone. I also don't agree in extending gravel mining or the arm plant in the river, but I'm a little bit skeptic about the skimming. While I understand that there might need to be some work done in that area to protect the bridge, I'm also concerned about the health of the entire river. I also talked to the Russian riverkeeper, had a long discussion with him as well as some other people, and if you just start skimming and taking rock from underneath the bridge, it could have unintended consequences further down the river and harm somebody else's property and also harm the river again. So there needs to be a comprehensive look at that whole giant stretch of the river, not just the little part around the bridge, so that we're not causing another problem downstream of a problem that we're trying to fix. We've got to start letting the river run naturally and not try to engineer it so much. That's what's gotten us into so much trouble, and that's why we have endangered fish in that river right now. So we need to start managing it as a whole system in a healthy way so that it can meander on its own. And I would look at that skimming, because I would be open to looking at it, but I would really need to understand that it wasn't going to harm and do more damage than's already been done.
We're going to share the same mic because this one seems to be working better than the others, so appreciate you passing that back and forth. Okay. Thank you all for printing your questions. I'm a little challenged when it comes to reading cursive, so I appreciate that. Taking it from the top, and I put them back in reverse order. We're going to start with Deb on this one. What would you say are the three primary distinctions between you and your opponent?
I'd say the most primary distinction is record and experience. I've got a track record that people can see. I've been working for years in Sonoma County. People understand where I make my decisions. I've been consistent. Not bound by, as the Press Democrat said, I'm not bound by a certain ideology or by my own political interests. I'm open to speaking with everyone. I guess I would say that there were both in there with that. But the other difference is that I am not going to run for higher office. I promise you that I will stay in this job for at least 12 years, assuming I would be reelected. I will not be spending time while I'm in this office running for other office, and I absolutely promise that. I've never heard my opponent promise that. So when I said in the Press Democrat, we talked about, I said I called him a pure politician because I believe he will be stepping up to a higher career, which is, if he wants to do that, that's his own business. But I make a commitment to the residents of Sonoma County that I will stay in this job and not spend the time in this job running for another job. And that I promise you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I think we have some similarities, and I'll start with those. One is environment. Two, this is where we're going to be staying. I'm committed to Sonoma County. And let's be honest. Deb does not have psychic powers because she is the only one that continues to say these false claims. So what these differences are is, I think, economic stability. Healdsburg has one of the most economically stable communities in our county. I'm the only one in this race that has had the experience to balance tough budgets when it comes to school districts in the city council. Another difference is agriculture. I understand agriculture. This district has more vineyard planted than any other district in the county of Sonoma. My family comes from agriculture, and I understand it. Three, water. I'm a co-founder of the Clean Water Coalition in Northern Sonoma County. I know how to be able to bring folks together from agriculture and from the environment. I've done it once, and I'm going to do it before. And four, it's energy. I will work harder than anyone in this race, not only when it comes to the campaign, but when it comes to creating smart policy that will bring great fortune to this county. And ladies and gentlemen, it's not about name calling. We need to focus on the issues that are at hand here tonight, and that's creating jobs. That's balancing our budget. That's protecting our environment. And that is making sure that we have quality health care in this county and that our kids have the job and technical skills they need to thrive.
Very good, thank you. Next question to Deb. First, What will you do about sound abatement for homes built near the train tracks, and how will it be paid for?
They're actually going to be there are going to be quiet zones throughout the whole SMART corridor. So every city that the train passes through, there's enough money in the SMART budget so that there will be quiet zones. And what that means is that every one of the intersections will be designed especially carefully. There are certain rules from the PUC where you do this, so that no car can get through the intersection when a train is coming. If you can design them that carefully with certain gates that go down, there's a way that you do it, then you are allowed to run your trains through the corridor without having to honk and beep. And so what the passenger trains will be going through this area really quietly. I'm not able to control the freight trains, that's a whole nother agency, but you will not hear a lot of noise from the passenger trains as they go through. Each car has a truck engine that is also very quiet. There's a lot of insulation within that. So really, the passenger trains will be, some people have told me they would actually miss the horns, and some people have asked me, let's not put quiet zones because we're going to miss the honking as they go through town, but they will be quiet, and people will be really pleased, I think, when the trains are running and they don't have as much of an impact as they might expect.
Thank you very much. This is actually something that we've been working with our business community and our public works department on in Healdsburg. So for example, Councilmember Fudge is absolutely right, and I appreciate all of her hard work with SMART. We need to be able to focus on these quiet zones. This is something that the Healdsburg City Council is actually working with our infill development crew in regard to local hotels as well as new apartment buildings that are going along the track. We will be actually looking at contributions from redevelopment agency for these quiet zones, and we're working already with the North Coast Railroad Authority and looking to a partnership with Sonoma Marin Area Rail Transit to ensure that these quiet zones are going to be but possible. The other piece that we're working on right now is ensuring that there's going to be a local match of dollars because these zones run about $300,000 a piece. So that is another item that this council in Healdsburg, and I know the Windsor Town Council has been working on, is in regard to having to try to fund these quiet zones, as they are imperative to the quality of life of downtown residents, but it's something else that we're going to have to continue to look at in the years to come.
We have a number of questions related to transportation tonight, but I'm going to take them in order and not cluster them together. So Mike, this is for you this time. How will employees get to their place of employment in San Francisco, Daly City, when they arrive at Larkspur on the SMART train?
That's a great question, and that's something actually that we're looking at in our comprehensive transportation plan as a member of the Sonoma County Transportation Authority. So, for example, the ridership rates go down considerably if an individual has to be able to make a stop off of a bus. So one of the items that we'd like Golden Gate Transit to be able to step up on is ensuring that we have direct routes into the financial district and San Francisco International Airport. This is something that this Board of Supervisors, as well as the SMART Board and the Sonoma County Transportation Authority, is going to need to continue to work on because what we need to be able to do is end our reliance on the automobile. Over 60% of all greenhouse gas emissions in this state is caused by vehicles miles traveled. And what we need to be able to do is make buses as convenient as possible that will go from the Larkspur Ferry all the way into the city, the financial district, as well as San Francisco International Airport.
SMART is actually working very carefully to make sure that where we place the platform at the Larkspur ferry terminal we're placing it so that it's closest to the ferry terminal in terms of people wanting to walk when they get off the train. So even though the platform will be high and they will need to be walking down some steps to get to the ferry building, there are ways we are working out so that people that are disabled or that need transportation to the terminal directly across the parking lot in rain are going to be able to do that. So you will be able to take the train to Larkspur and then take the ferry to the city, but there will also be, we're working very carefully with bus companies and Golden Gate Transit right now to make sure that we have really good transfer times set up. We're also working with the airport or bus services, so that when you get off the ferry terminal, when you get off at the Larkspur station, you can jump right on an airport or bus that will take you straight to whichever airport you'd like to go to. So all of those things are being considered so that we can actually make sure that people can get out of their cars and get it where they need to go, reduce greenhouse gases. And since so many go to the airport, we're trying to make sure we make that a really, really strong connection.
Another question about SMART to Deb, this time for the first response. Will building SMART be enough to get us all the new jobs we need in the county? Be specific, how and when?
SMART won't bring us all the jobs, but what it does is create a region where employers will want to locate. They've told me, the employers in San Francisco, that when we have an alternative mode of transit, when we're not just relying on our freeway, which can get gridlocked, and heaven forbid when there's an accident, when there's an alternative mode of transit, those employers will locate up here. And there are a lot of high-tech people that have been talking to me about that. So it will bring, like I've said, there's a federal report that says that SMART will attract 18,000 jobs to the region after it's been running for about a year or two. And so the trains are going to start running in 2014, so that means we'll start seeing the job upticks in 2015 and 2016. So it isn't the only thing we can do, but it's one of the main things that we can do. We also need to be working to create the kind of business-friendly region that will attract these people even before we get the train. And as an environmental planner and someone who's created a huge change in Windsor, that's something that I know I can do at the county level. I can get the cities and the county to work together to break down barriers at the Permit Management Resource Department, which is the county planning department, to make sure that we're all working together to create a region that's famous for, you know, where we live and what kind of jobs we'd like to attract here, so that the employees that want to live here can then live here when their employers locate here.
If either candidate wants to repeat a question, please feel free.
Thank you, Gary. SMART is absolutely imperative to our economic recovery here in the North Bay. And I appreciate Deborah Fudge for all of her hard work as chairwoman of SMART. But it can't be the only plan. And there was a question that was asked me earlier, what my plan was. Well, it's right here. I'm the only candidate in this race that have released a jobs plan to get Sonoma County back working again. We're over 22% underemployed and unemployed in the county of Sonoma. And the Board of Supervisors has no bigger opportunity and or job than balancing the budget than getting people working again. So let's give you some specifics. One, we need to take the $1.2 billion Sonoma County Energy Independence Program. Folks are able to make energy efficient upgrades to their homes by putting the investment on their property tax. $1.2 billion over 30 years will be spent in Sonoma County. In my plan, we spend 25% in the first 5 years with local contractors and local subcontractors. Within 10 years, we need to spend 50%. In addition, we need a local preference clause in the county of Sonoma. That means that local suppliers will actually be able to benefit from the discretionary revenue, which is in the tens of millions from the county of Sonoma. In addition, we need to shake up the Economic Development Board. And I have a plan within 5 years to be able to bring forward 100 new small businesses in the county of Sonoma. Now, this has third-party validation as well. Lisa Schaffner from the Sonoma County Alliance and Lisa Maldonado from the North Bay Labor Council have both signed on to this jobs plan.
I really like this question. Mike, you get the first shot. Would you be willing to reduce your salary of $169,000 to improve county fiscal goals?
Great. Here we go. Actually, this is a very important question because I believe leadership starts at the top. We have asked literally thousands of county employees to be able to take cuts in pay. We have more folks lining up for food stamps than any time in the last decade. Now is not the time to have bloated salaries with the Board of Supervisors. I have already said that I will take a 30% cut in pay my first day in office. Because if we are truly leading by example in this county, change starts at the top. And in addition, we need to change the way the Board of Supervisors receives their raises. It's linked to Superior Court judges. The supervisors should receive the same raise or the same concession as all rank and file employees. This isn't rhetoric, it's common sense, and I would implement it the first day I take office for myself.
I agree with what Mike's just said. Our salary is not our salary would not be $169,000. It keeps getting reported in the paper. It's actually more like $130,000. So it's what's being reported in the paper is actually judge's salary, not the Board of Supervisors' salary. So, but I would also be agreement to take a cut. If employees are taking time off without pay and mandatory time off, and they've got 2 or 3 weeks less of salary that they're not getting because of budget cuts in the county, then we would have to do the same thing, and I would take the equivalent amount of cuts that they have, and if it's more than 30%, then that's what it would be. I agree that we need to make the same concessions. We've been very careful in Windsor to treat the employees well and to make sure that we have cut our expenditures to make sure that we are treating everybody the same way. And in tough times, it's only the right thing to do.
Okay, next question to Deb this time first. What type of alternative energy initiatives might you support or propose for our district?
The first thing we need to do in terms of alternative energy initiatives is we need to all vote no on Prop 16 in the June election. And I say that as a 25-year PG&E employee. I left the company voluntarily, and one of the reasons I left was because I started to see sort of a change and shift within the company in terms of a lot of their policies. And when I saw Prop 16 come up and they're spending $35 million, and they actually wrote this themselves, it's something that we need to actually send away at the ballot and vote no, so that we will be able to have alternative energy if we want it in this county. They're calling it the Taxpayers' Right to Vote Act, that you always have an option to actually opt out of any alternative energy program that any city or county might put forward. What PG&E wants is for you to have to opt in. So it's just sort of a sleight of hand. It's a way for them to try to keep their monopoly and to try to keep every single customer. But I would love to see an alternative energy park at the landfill. I'd like to see, I've been on the board of Solar Sonoma County trying to bring 25 megawatts of solar power to the county by 2011. We're actually 2/3 of the way there. I'd love to see more and more solar through this Sonoma County Energy Independence Program on individual homes. Anything we can do to get off the grid, create green energy and jobs at the same time is what we need to do here in Sonoma County.
Thank you very much. The worst thing we can do for alternative energy is support the absolutely ludicrous proposition of Prop 16. Prop 16 would be an independent corporation amending the state constitution for their own gain. They are buying and paying for the California political system. And we must leave this room united in making sure that Prop 16 goes down hard in June. Because if we had Prop 16, the city of Healdsburg would not have the greenest utility in the North Bay. We are 48% green certified renewable, the highest in the North Bay. Compare that with PG&E at 13%. Just 2 years ago, we were 5th in the nation when it comes to solar installation per capita of cities our size. And when it comes to the actual county of Sonoma and what we need to do to ensure that we are energy independent, one, we need to expand the Sonoma County Energy Independence Program so that more folks are taking advantage of the money that is there. Two, we need to ensure that that money is going to work here in Sonoma County so that folks aren't coming in from the Central Valley and the Bay Area and using up awful greenhouse gas emissions to do the work where qualified Sonoma County contractors should and would be doing this work if they weren't here.
Okay, just so that people don't think I'm passing over a question, I just eliminated a separate question that just was answered. How do you feel about Prop 16? So I think that one's been answered. So we're ahead of the curve. Okay, the next one to Mike. The county is in a very difficult fiscal condition. What would you do as a supervisor to correct the county's fiscal problems?
Thank you very much. So I was the only candidate at the last budget workshop. And let's talk about what was said. There's a $61.2 million deficit, and in fact, the County of Sonoma will have to cut $100 million over 3 years. So here's what it looks like. $26.2 million has been identified by the County Administrator's Office. That leaves us approximately half left to go. So one of the pieces that I think is going to be absolutely imperative now more than ever is shared sacrifice. I think that we need to look at management levels at the County of Sonoma. 2, I think it's going to be absolutely necessary that the board leads by example by cutting their own salary. 3, I think the other piece is we need to stop contracting out at the County of Sonoma. We have qualified employees that can do the job, and they're more qualified than independent contractors. And we need to ensure that we are spending the public's money wisely. And finally, I think the other piece is we need to change the culture at the County of Sonoma. Too often and too long, it's top-down decisions that have gotten into this mess. We need to inner reliance on making sure that we have to keep funneling development to keep government funded. And that is going to be the absolute goal of this next board, is to decide how we are going to look at long-term revenue for the County of Sonoma. And the way we're going to do that is by creating jobs and working with local businesses.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't at that budget meeting, Mike, because I was trying to bring the train to Sonoma County, so can't be two places at once. Trying to fill my responsibilities. What's happening now, a lot of what the budget crisis is about, is the state is taking money away from us, as all of you know, and Windsor is about to turn over $1.3 million of redevelopment funds this week because we're forced to the state. So one thing I've been doing proactively is working on that initiative that's going to be on the ballot and passing around petitions to make sure that we can change the Constitution of the state of California to prevent the legislature from taking any more money from us, because it's about time that we do that. This is the second proposition, that's the second initiative that's been on the ballot. The first one, there was a loophole, so now I've been working with those to fill the loophole. In walking precincts, I've talked to many county employees. They answer the doors and they talk to me and they tell me about all the inefficiencies that they still see at the county level, and they want to be heard. As a corporate employee at PG&E, I know when I was listened to and when I wasn't listened to. It's usually the employees that have the best ideas, and so we need to go back in and talk to them and figure out what their ideas are to get rid of the inefficiencies. There's also still a layer of middle management at the county that is still too thick. It needs to be thinned. I would do that through attrition. I don't want to lay anybody off, but I would be looking at those jobs and getting rid of them through attrition. I also agree that the county's been contracting out too much. That is more costly, and there needs to be strategic long-term decision-making in the county instead of short-term expensive decisions.
Okay, let's switch gears just a little bit. We're now going to talk about air travel. To Deb, first, do you support the Sonoma County Airport expansion and upgrade?
That's an interesting question for Windsor, because we feel and hear the flights. We are in the landing pattern for the flights that go over to the Sonoma County, that go to the Sonoma County Airport. The Horizon jets have actually been really quiet, and so they haven't really caused a problem here. I am in favor of expansion due to the fact that it would help our economy. I'm worried about the type of planes that would be coming in that would be noisier, so that I still need to research to see what kinds that they would be. But I've been working cooperatively with the airport, with the town of Windsor staff, with citizens, and with the FAA to try to lessen the impact of noise and traffic over the Windsor area. And I also work closely with Mike Thompson's office. I held 2 meetings when I was mayor to try to lessen the impacts to the Windsor citizens, because we had a lot of planes that were flying over, that were buzzing our houses, and they were really loud and noisy, and older planes that were in poor shape that were actually causing a lot of the problem. And so we've actually been working with the airport to create a landing pattern instead of the pilots flying left, and circling over my house, actually, to land at the airport at nights. Now we've got them to circle and go and travel right, so that there can be less impact here. And what I wanted to do proactively was not have Windsor citizens upset about the air traffic, so that when we did get more commercial traffic that would help our economy, that we would have solved the problem that bothered them, so that they would welcome and not oppose any new aircraft here that we might want to attract.
Air service has been a very important part of our economy. In fact, the routes out of Santa Rosa have been some of the best for Horizon Air than any other route that they serve in the United States. We're fluctuating between 68 and 72% as far as the planes being full. So absolutely we need to continue to create that partnership with Horizon. There's an EIR, an environmental impact report, that has been discussed and is actually moving forward at the county airport. Here's the deal. We need to continue to support the expansion when the county actually has the funds to be able to move forward. And I think the other very important piece is that we have to show that the need and the desire for service is going to be there. We need to continue to ensure that the airport is going to be a success for the county of Sonoma and for the businesses of Sonoma, not just now and into the future. But where I think the county went wrong the last time, and as a member of the Board of Supervisors I would work on, is bringing the neighborhood into the process and bringing the surrounding communities into the process. So when I talk about that top-down decision-making, we need to become much more collaborative in our outreach with our communities. So those folks that have homes near the airport know what the type of service is going to be when it starts. But yes, I do think that we need to continue to move forward with the environmental impact report, which will lead to the expansion of the airport.
Okay, a slight shift in focus to education. Mike, what duties does a supervisor have that can, in reality, affect our city schools?
Good point. Look, some folks may say that the County Board of Supervisors does not have a role in education. But if any of us were to read the Press-Democrat this last week, it reported that 74% of all public high school students in the county of Sonoma will not go on to a four-year degree. And if all of us in this room do not make it a priority to ensure that future generations have the job skills and the technical skills that they need to thrive, we are making a mistake. And that is why I'm pushing against the status quo. I've released a common sense contract with kids. It's a contract about how the County Board of Supervisors needs to work more collaboratively with our school districts. So not only do we need to help promote and bring businesses and educational leaders and our community leaders together to start talking about technical skills, but we need to make sure that we continue to advance safe routes to schools. As a member of the Sonoma County Transportation Authority, we have just secured a $1 million federal grant that will expand our safe route to school programs. And finally, I think the County Board of Education and the County Board of Supervisors needs to work with the Board of Education on collaboration of services. In Healdsburg, we pay for $250,000 worth of field maintenance for our schools. In return, we get full use of all school district facilities after hours. That is the type of collaboration that we need to move forward with the County of Sonoma.
We're just about to elect a new county superintendent of schools, and I think it's primarily his job to do a lot of what's in Mike's school plans. While I respect him for creating a plan like that, I really think we need to leave a lot of that up to the person whose job it really is. There's a full plate on the Board of Supervisors in terms of our budget shortfalls, in terms of transportation, health care, water, wastewater, planning, you name it, and the Russian River as well. So we need to be focusing on that. However, there are some smaller things that we can do to be able to help schools, and these are things that we've done in Windsor. We've done joint use agreements between the schools in the town, and the county can do the same thing, where we've improved roads to schools. We've improved sidewalks. We've done safe route to school programs as well. We've provided parks and fields next to schools. And the other thing that can be done that I don't know if any other city's ever done is that in our garbage franchise agreements, we've actually got a lot of free services for schools, including free e-waste pickup and free porta potty service for whenever that's needed for any of their events, so that that money is then freed up that they can spend on programs within their schools. And if the county and the cities can help, the cities help the schools in that way, then I think that's the best use of our time and resources. But again, the supervisors should be focusing on their main job, because there's a hell of a lot on that plate, and we need to make sure that we get the main parts of the job accomplished.
Okay, the next question is to Deb, and I think you've partially answered this one already, but we'll take another shot. Do either of you plan to run for state or federal office?
No, never. I'm not sure who would want to do that now with the hard work that those people have there, and with all the partisanship that's going on and the decisions that can't be made. I promise that I will never run for higher office, that I will stay in this position, serve you, and give you 150% of my time, just as I always have.
I'm a person of my word. And when I say, and I hope this ends this discussion tonight, council member, Sonoma County is where I want to be. Sonoma County is where Erica and I are going to be raising our family. Sonoma County is where we have farmed for 3 generations. It's where my mom and I take care of my mentally disabled uncle. I grew up here. I want to serve here. There will not be anyone that will work harder on the Board of Supervisors than I will to be able to improve our economy, to expand our job base, and yes, to create partnerships with Mr. Harrington and the Office of Education, and yes, to ensure that agriculture is maintained as a county priority, and that we are able to focus on a long-term water policy. Erica and I are going to be raising our kids here, and I'd be honored to have your support, not just as a member of the Board of Supervisors now, but if we are lucky enough in the next 4, 8, and 12 years. Because what we need now is a long-term investment from our Board of Supervisors. And that is what you will have from me if elected to the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors.
Okay, Mike, back to you on this one. As a county supervisor, would you support the concept of turning the county detention center at the airport into an emergency medical center so airlifts would not be restricted as they are now?
There we go. Look, when it comes to issues of public safety, it is absolutely, you're right, that we need to look at all alternatives. The Honor Farm is located right next to the airport, but right now, we do not have the funding to be able to relocate and or close down the Honor Farm and move it elsewhere. In fact, I think our money will be better spent in other areas, like plugging the budget hole, like making sure that we're creating good jobs, like making sure that we're taking care of our roadways. I think that there is actually going to be a workaround for the Board of Supervisors in regards to any airlifts, and we never want to sacrifice public safety. But I think our money is going to be better spent on the higher priorities that all of us are facing here in the County of Sonoma.
So this is how I operate. I don't know much about that question, so what I would do is go research it, and I would go ask the parties that asked the question what was behind it, and find out what the real need was. And if there were a need that needed to be filled, I would try to find a way to fill it. So that's what I would say to that, is that I would need to have more information. I just don't want to make a blind comment without more information, because that's how I make decisions.
Another transportation-related question. What would you do, Deb, as a public, as a supervisor, to improve public transportation, especially bus service?
We're actually already working on this with SMART, and with the Friends of SMART, we've been emailing each other all week. There's a board meeting today with Friends of SMART to try to figure out how we can reroute all the bus services, make them more efficient, run them not in a circular manner, but more laterally, to meet up with the train. So we're already starting to plan the bus service, not only in the city, but in the county as well, to try to match it up with train service when the train service comes. There's got to be more efficient ways to run that service without having to go all the way to the transfer station on 2nd Street in Santa Rosa and then have to wait 45 minutes to be able to get to the other part of town. It's just a really inefficient routing system as it looks right now to me. I know that there's not a lot of money in that system right now and that there are budget cuts, so I think there need to be new eyes in there to try to make sure that people can get where they need to go. And that's something that I've actually been already talking with people about.
Thank you, sir. Northern Sonoma County is the second most underserved area when it comes to bus transit. In fact, bus routes have been cut by Sonoma County Transit by 30%. The State Transportation Assistance Fund that funds public transit, particularly buses, was cut last year by the legislature and the governor. That's $650 million. It's going to be restored $450 million, $200 million less this coming fiscal year. So what that means is that we're going to have to come up with a local solution. So in Healdsburg, what we had to do is dip into our reserves to ensure that our senior community and our Latino community is going to be served. Because the most underserved populations and the highest growing populations in northern Sonoma County are your seniors and your Latino community. So we need to continue to advance a comprehensive transportation plan that's been adopted by the Sonoma County Transportation Authority. In addition, the money is not going to come from the state any longer, which is why both Councilmember Fudge and I proudly support the vehicle registration fee. It's a $10 fee on your license that will be going forward in November. It will create 68% of the revenue generated, between 7 and 10 million, will go to bus service. If we are serious about ending our reliance on the automobile and serious about cutting greenhouse gas emissions in the county of Sonoma, we have to be able to provide reliable public transit, smart buses, as well as bike and pedestrian trails.
Okay. The winter season's almost over, but this question still is apropos. Mike, what is your position on the ban of wood-burning appliances, even those that comply with EPA standards? Would you support a no-burn day policy similar to other counties?
We're getting juicy. That is something that I think I have some concern about. I would like to be able to sit down with Ann Hancock of the Climate Protection Campaign, as well as the Board of Realtors, to be able to have this ongoing discussion about wood burning. Look, what we need to do in this tough economy is make it as easy as possible, particularly in the light of the statistics across this county when it comes to foreclosures and short sales, folks being able to sell their homes. So I do have some concerns of reacting flippantly to saying let's ban all wood-burning stoves. That said, I would like to be able to sit down with the Climate Protection Campaign as well as the realtors to be able to see if there's a happy medium, but I actually do feel like I have some concern about moving forward with an immediate ban on wood stoves in this county.
When I was walking precincts last week, I was actually talking to a woman in Cloverdale, and because of the layer, the mountains that they have around them and then the inversion layer, a lot of people up there happen to burn, and it's a health hazard for her. And she was asking me about the same question. She said, what can you do? Can you talk to the Bay Area Air Quality Management District or the North Coast Air Pollution Control District? And, could you talk to them about burn days and when it's appropriate? Because she actually literally can't breathe. And so it's not only a greenhouse gas issue, but it's also a health issue for a lot of people. At the same point, I don't want to put an undue burden. I know it's an undue burden sometimes on realtors that have to go out when homes are being changed out and start to make inspections, and then it costs people a lot of money to be able to have to change out these stoves before they move. So I can see both sides of the issue, but I would be concerned mostly with figuring out what would be best for people's health and for greenhouse gas emissions. I would try to do everything I could to create an incentive program to get people to stop burning outright, but to put in sleeves in their fireplaces and have maybe pellet burning and things that are more energy efficient, and also reduce greenhouse gases. I would look for alternatives and try to create incentives for people to try to switch out on their own.
Okay, Deb, this one for you. What is your plan to improve the local economy? Please be specific. Very broad-based.
Wow, this is when I need my crystal ball. We need to be bringing jobs to this county. We need to start working locally to create a new economy here, and it needs to be sort of a new normal. Things are never going to go back to the way they were. We were living in a bubble before. So we need to be working regionally together, because we can't do it individually with cities fighting with the county and the county fighting with the cities. We need to be working regionally to create an area that is known for wanting to attract jobs here. We've done this with climate protection. Since 2001, I've been working on the climate protection campaign to try to create a regional agreement between all the cities in the county, and we did that. We created a plan that is now nationally and internationally known and was actually talked about in Copenhagen. If we can cooperate that well, the cities in the county, on something like that with a pledge to reduce greenhouse gases, we can certainly do that in terms of job attraction. We're going to have to work together so that cities aren't fighting each other for jobs or for big boxes or for stores, and we've got to reduce the regulations so that we will be able to be business friendly, so that people will know that when they come here they can fly through the process. If they're bringing the jobs that we want and they're putting them in the right places, that they can fly through our permitting process. And once we get that reputation, we will be in very, very strong shape.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we can't do is continue to wait on the state and the federal government to help us get jobs moving again in the county. And time again, this county has picked ourselves up by our bootstraps and created practical solutions that have driven our economy to greatness, and we will do it again. And the way we're going to do this again is not just with vision, but with specifics. And one of the items that I am running on is I'm running on my 10-year track record as a member of the school board and city council. But I'm also running on my plan. And I hope that all of you will hold me accountable if I am lucky enough to be elected to the Board of Supervisors with my 6-point job plan. I won't outline them again, as I did earlier. But the reason I released this is because I want you to support me just not what I say, but what I do and how I will specifically address the absolute meltdown in our economy. If we do not address the 22% of underemployment and unemployment, we will fail. And we're going to have to do it together, and we're going to have to take bold steps. And the way we're going to take bold steps is putting a plan out there and bringing in our business community and our educational leaders and our environmental leaders and all of our members of the city councils to make adoption possible for new jobs in this county.
Okay. This is a rather long question, so if you'd like to have me repeat it, I'd be glad to. To you, Mike. The County Employees Retirement Association, which represents about 8,000 people, suffered a $670 million investment loss in the 2008 stock market downturn. How do you propose to recoup that loss?
Well, my goodness. Look, so here's what happened. The County Board of Supervisors last year made a decision to be able to cap health benefits. So, for example, all active employees were able to get themselves, and if they had a dependent and or a spouse, covered as well. Retirees up to the age of 65 were able to get their full medical, dental, and vision covered. And what the previous board did is they capped that at $500 a month. And I have a concern, particularly for the 30% of county retirees that make less than $2,000 a month. When they signed up for the County of Sonoma to put in their 30-year career, they knew that they were going to retire with a deal. And now they're actually having to absorb hundreds of dollars a month on a $2,000 salary in retirement. And I think that is something that this board is going to need to address in regards to long-term needs when it comes to retiree issue. But when it comes to the bigger issue, I support a collaborative effort of this board sitting down, whether it be with active employees and or retirees, to have the discussion about retirement.
I think the question was about the pension fund and the possible refinancing that may be considered by the Board of Supervisors, but I'd also like to address the health benefits. When you walk precincts, you meet people you don't forget. I met a 32-year, he still works at the county, road employee in the Public Works Department in Larkfield, Wickiup area, and we were talking about his retirement benefits, and he is about to retire. He's got 1 or 2 years left. And so he was talking about how the health benefits are being lowered and what the impact will be personally on he and his wife. And he has been saving for his whole life for retirement, but he didn't plan to have to spend $500 to $800 more a month, maybe more, depending on his wife's health, in order to retire and have health benefits. And so he's sort of stuck. And so I promised him that when I become a supervisor, should I be so fortunate as to be elected, that I would work to restore those health benefits to those employees that have over 25 years of employment with the county, whether they've retired or whether they're about to retire, because it's unfair to cut benefits for a group of people who have worked so loyally for the county for so many years, and then they're on a fixed income and can't afford and have to give up so much of their quality of life just for health benefits. And so I made that promise to him, and I will do all I can to keep it.
Deb, I hope we get some more questions. We still have time, so if you have any others, please submit them, because we're down to our final two before closing statements are made. So if you have I see a hand in the back. This is a two-part question to Deb. How do you envision the future of county planning, and what is your experience with implementing innovative planning concepts?
Oh, I've got so many ideas. This is actually my expertise. I have a master's in environmental planning, and a lot of what we've done in Windsor can be done at the county level as well. I actually had a county employee email me recently about all the changes that they thought that could be made at the Permanent Managed Resource District, or the county planning department. What I would do is go in and work with the employees that are there and try to break through the barriers. I mean, when it takes a candidate 45 minutes to go stand in line to get your sign permit for your election, you wonder what kind of timing and how much work it takes and what people go through every day when they want to go get a permit for building anything with their homes, or whether they're getting a solar permit for their home, for their houses, or anything else. So with my planning background and what we've done in the Windsor Planning Department, we've actually been able to send businesses flying through the permit process because we've worked up front with them. We've worked up front with a winery that just located in Windsor. We actually approved the winery in one night because he was building in the right place. He was building what we wanted. We talked to him up front about building green, and we got all the departments that would be involved in that relocation of that winery, including Public Works and the wastewater department, to work with him up front to make sure that he flew through the process so that he could make crush. And if I can do that in Windsor, we can certainly do that at the county, and that's something I actually can't wait to do. It would be very, very exciting and fun for me to be able to start working on that process.
Okay, I'm going to reread these. There's two parts. Mike, how do you envision the future of county planning, and what is your experience with implementing innovative planning concepts?
So with county planning, I'll address that first, and I'll talk about experience. With county planning, I think that we need to be able to streamline the process. Few items. I would support taking a look at linking new construction to green building practices through LEED accreditation. What that would mean is if an individual were to come forward with a certain amount of LEED points, their permit would actually be sped through the process. I think now is the time to start taking a look at how we operate in these tough times. And there may be some inefficiencies that we need to be able to look at in regards to the permitting process, and how we're going to make it easier for businesses to be able to move forward in that planning process, but while being smart and strategic when it comes to growth. My experience in regards to planning has been on the Healdsburg City Council. So for example, we are taking one of the last and largest pieces of land in the city of Healdsburg, and we've developed a special study area for it. And what we are doing is looking at the best type of businesses, along with linking of residential, putting it next to our train station, and talking about transit-oriented development. And what this county needs to do is start taking a lesson from the communities that have been progressive in their planning principles. So like in Healdsburg, we have established a process that brings in business leaders and citizens to help develop the planning process for economic vitality tomorrow.
Okay, last call, folks. I think there's a couple more questions working their way forward now. This is a kind of a long range. Get out your crystal ball again, Deb. What is your vision for Sonoma County in 15 years, And what will you do to realize that vision?
I see us in 15 years having recovered from this economic crisis that we're living through right now, and I actually see solid planning principles in place for the unincorporated areas of the county. I see the citizens and the supervisors and business people and agricultural people here having met and created a vision plan for the county for the unincorporated areas so that we all are marching toward the same vision. We did that in Windsor, we did that with citizens and created the vision for what we wanted to build here, and then we went and did it. And there has been none of that done at the county level. There's a lot of hopscotch development, there's been threats to ag because of Disneyland style wineries being put out in places where they shouldn't be. There's just been really no proactive, forward planning, long-term decision-making done at the county level, and that's exactly what I want to do. And what my background and experience would lead us to do. And so I actually see job centers, I see alternative energy farms, I see people being able to live and work in Sonoma County without having to commute out of here, and I see enough affordable housing for all of us to be able to afford to live here, all ages and all stripes.
Okay. The question is again, what is your vision for Sonoma County in 15 years, and what will you do to realize that vision?
I have a few areas where I vision this county needs to go. First of all, we need a more aggressive recession reserve policy in this county so that we never get into the mess that we are in now, ever again. We need to start taking a look at using surpluses and putting them away so that when we hit a tough time like we are in now, we aren't going to have to make the drastic cuts that are going to affect working families and seniors in this county. So first and foremost, I think that this county and the Board of Supervisors needs to work with all stakeholders, employee groups, agricultural groups, business leaders, on how we're going to develop a more conservative plan for our finances. 2, we need a long-term water plan for this county over the next 15 years. If we do not start taking control of the issues surrounding water, the federal government will do it for us. So what that means is bringing people together that may not get along, like the environmental and agricultural community, or like the business community, to talk about how we are going to have enough water for our largest industry, which is ag, along with ensuring that our fisheries are going to continue to survive and thrive, but then also that recreation and our cities have the waters that they need to exist. 3, we need to develop a long-term transportation plan. And what that means is breaking down the little kingdoms that exist here today. So Sonoma County Transit needs to work with Golden Gate Transit. Golden Gate Transit needs to work with Santa Rosa Transit. And then SMART. We need to ensure that SMART isn't incorporated in this transportation plan. I had one more point, but you can talk to me afterwards. All right, thanks.
Okay, Mike, this one you might have to give us all a little bit of background on. What are the positive and negative aspects of the Saggio Hills development?
Thank you. I think let's talk about the positives, and then we'll talk about what some may perceive as the negatives. So the Saggio Hills development is a development that will keep 2/3 of the property in open space. The Saggio Hills development is the development that cut water by 60%. The Saggio Hills development is the development that is going to be building a new fire station for the city of Healdsburg. It actually is also going to be providing our city's largest park at 58 acres. In addition, it has the strictest oak tree management plan in the county. It also is going to supply $1.1 million in the most conservative outlook to funding vital services. So some may want to make this an issue. But what I look at it is actually a process that was vetted over 24 meetings by our city council. And there's going to have to be some additional due diligence that is going to have to be done with the project. But what I will say is this. It is nothing like the 2,500 homes that have been built here in Windsor over the last 16 years. If we take a look at the greenhouse gas emissions that will be created or have been created from that type of development to that of what Saggio Hills will have, there's no ball game.
I think some of the positives for Healdsburg, for the Sagio Hills project, is that the hotel tax money that will be brought into the city coffers. I think some of the negatives are that it is intense development at the edge of a city, which isn't the way that I would develop a city, but then again, I'm not on the Healdsburg City Council, so that wasn't my business, and I didn't weigh in on that. I think another negative is that while there's land provided for affordable housing, there's no money, as far as I can see, for the building of that housing. And so there are unfunded sort of mandates with the project that I'm not sure will get funded and might not get funded for a very long time. Another negative is that the EIR was just thrown out of court because it was inadequate. And as a Windsor resident who actually worked on EIRs for the state, I sat here knowing that that would happen because the city council didn't listen to constituents that told them that the EIR was inadequate because an alternative smaller project was not considered. And that is one of the prerequisites of California planning law, that be considered. And so whether the city council wanted to approve the larger project or a smaller project, and the developer told them he didn't want to build a smaller project because he couldn't make enough profit, that's not the issue. The issue is that you make sure that you certify complete planning documents so that you don't waste the time and money of your citizens having to sue you, the city, to follow California planning law. So I would say that was the strongest negative to me, that the citizens had to step up and do that.
Okay, you're going to have to pardon me on this one because I can't read my own writing the day after, so with apologies on this question to Deb. Public employees were given promises of benefits by previous boards that are now beyond taxpayers' ability to support. How will you change this?
That's tough because the employees are expecting that. I will say in Windsor that we've done some creative things, not that this could be done at the county, but it does show the way that I think and the way that, that I operate. In Windsor, we pay 42% of our general fund. We pay 42% less than any other city for police and fire services. For police services, and we have the second lowest crime rate. The only city that has a lower crime rate than we do is Cloverdale by 0.7%. We also have a fire district here, but we help fund that fire district by helping to build the fire station. So there's a lot of creative ways you can do to save money within the budget that way. And so what we are doing in Windsor is we are not having to pay the retirement benefits and the early retirement for police because that is actually funded by the county. So that is another reason that Windsor's in really good financial shape. So I think it means going back to the table and renegotiating with these unions to make sure that what they have, the benefits that they have, is more in line with what everybody else has as a county employee. And that's going to be tough because that's something that they don't want to hear, but that's something that I would have to evaluate when I'm a supervisor.
Okay, the question again. Public employees were given promises of benefits by previous boards that are now beyond the ability of taxpayers to support. How will you change this?
This is going to be a question that is going to be affecting all of us, not just at the county of Sonoma, but the town of Windsor, city of Healdsburg, and city of Santa Rosa, and all throughout the state of California. What we're going to need to be able to do is establish a collaborative process to be able to sit down with employee associations, to be able to talk about what our means really are. And I agree with Councilmember Fudge, is that we have to be very careful about going back on the deals that were struck just because we are in lean times. What we need to be able to do, though, is look ahead and how we are not going to be able, what we're going to be able to do and what we're not going to be able to do when it comes to public employees. But I have to go back to the previous question. So one of the concerns that Councilmember Fudge has with Sagio Hills is that wouldn't build out at the edge of a community. But just a few years ago, voted to put a large car dealership right on the edge of the Greenbelt. Look, we have to be consistent in our policy decisions. And I stand by what was decided with Sagio Hills. But one of the pieces is you also have to be consistent with your votes on the town council. What I was...
Testing? Seems to be working, Mike.
There you go. What I was saying is you have to be consistent If you're going to be criticizing, you can't make the same move on the Windsor Town Council than what you said the Hillsborough City Council did with a car dealership that is literally at the edge of a green belt in open space.
Okay, we saved the best questions for the last here. This one's a good one. Mike, back to you. What is your position on legalizing and taxing marijuana?
Good times. This is actually a question that was asked at the Windsor High School debate earlier today, so my goodness. So something that I said earlier, and this is a rough one for me, is that I'm going to give you a personal example. So my aunt and uncle, my aunt was a colonel in the military police. She met my uncle, who was a drug enforcement agent, on a drug raid. And as I said earlier, that's real classy and romantic, right? My aunt passed away from cancer. And the only thing that allowed her to eat is medical marijuana. So I think that there needs to be a sincere discussion about that issue. But I do not support the outright legalization of marijuana in this state. And in fact, I think this is going to be an issue that continues to grow, no pun intended, that policymakers are going to have to tackle. We have a county to our north that has an entire underground economy fueled off of sales of marijuana. And we have to be consistent in our discussion, both at the state and federal level. But as a local policymaker, I would not support the legalization of marijuana in the state of California.
We were asked that today at the high school, and that was interesting to be looking at a couple of hundred kids answering this question. I have a personal experience as well, and that is that I am a cancer survivor. And for anybody that has gone through chemo, and I hope nobody in this room ever has to do that, it's not fun. And there is no pill that Kaiser could give me that would ease the nausea that comes with chemo. And so there was a night when I was in bed, and I actually opened up the back door in case someone had to find me in the morning. I felt that sick from nausea, which is just bizarre. I hadn't experienced that before. That I wished for medical marijuana in my house, and there wasn't any. So I can understand the medical need for marijuana. I would have tried it if had it been available to me and had it been legal. Whether I want to legalize it for sale is another question that I need to think a little bit more about. I'm willing to, there have been no medical marijuana dispensaries proposed for Windsor, but we did have that conversation. There were police concerns about it. I know that there are dispensaries in the Santa Rosa area that are working very well, and I visited them and there are no problems with them, so I'd be willing to reconsider that. There would be a huge tax benefit if we could actually tax the marijuana, but there can also be a lot of public safety problems that would need to be worked out and that I would be concerned about.
Okay. Deb, back to you on this one. What is your position regarding the increase of water rates?
If they're the water rates in Windsor, then I would say that we've done a really good job of managing the rates. We were actually anticipating a 10% raise this year and a 10% raise next year, and we brought those rates down over the last few years due to good solid management to 6%. In terms of the Sonoma County Water Agency, of which I sit on the Water Advisory Committee, the same thing has occurred there. There were going to be rates of 9.8% increases, and now they were brought down to 6.9%. And so while it's sort of hard to understand in this era when people are cutting back and not using water because of water conservation, that there are still set costs and maintenance and operations that still remain stable. So even though less water is being sold, that is what causes some rates to rise. So I'm pleased that I've been a part of 2 different committees who have done their absolute solid best to make sure that the rate increases were as low as possible. If there were no increases, I would be even happier. But you need to provide, you need to charge rates at a level that provides a cost to serve, so that the funds don't go into debt. So it's fiscally responsible to raise rates when necessary, but as low as possible. And I hope next year that we can, that would be really good to have a 0% raise, but we'll have to see when that time comes.
I think this question brings up a bigger issue with the Sonoma County Water Agency. So the Sonoma County Water Agency supplies water to over 600,000 individuals on a daily basis, from Windsor in the north to North San Rafael in the south. And all of us need to do what we can to be able to conserve. But what can't be the next piece out of the Board of Supervisors' mouth is that rates are going up. So I think there needs to be a sincere discussion by the Board of Supervisors, who is also the Board of Directors of the Sonoma County Water Agency, about their long-term commitment in regards to costs associated with the system. And I also think that the management at the water agency, at least the previous management, did not respect local government. And in fact, many times turned their nose to suggestions from the city of Santa Rosa, or the city of Rohnert Park, or the town of Windsor. So as a member of the Board of Supervisors, where I would like to be able to focus is continuing to advance aggressive conservation programs. But then on the other side of it, I'd like to be able to have a sincere discussion with all the water contractors, both at the city level and the agricultural contractors, about what the real costs are to be able to operate the agency. Because that is what is continuing to happen, is that the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors continues to pass through costs. And that is something that we need to be able to change.
Okay, we are at our last question before we have closing statements. And this one has been in the news a lot lately. To you, Mike, first, would you support a countywide position regarding the recent Arizona immigration law?
I got to be honest with you, I think that immigration law is the most backwards piece of policy that we've seen in years. And it's absolutely embarrassing that it took part in our country. And frankly, I think it's all about racial profiling.